Please sit comfortably. So it's almost become a cliche to say that we live in uncertain times. But we live in uncertain times. I'm sure that everybody in this room is feeling it. There's so much change happening every single day at a speed that's almost incomprehensible. Every day there seems to be some new dimension of war or new catastrophe aligned with climate change, or some kind of new development in technology that is just so bewildering as to feel deeply inhuman and troubling. And so here we are going on with our careful everyday lives in the midst of all of this uncertainty, all of this great change, without knowing what on earth to do about it, without knowing what on earth is going on. Feeling deeply destabilised, I would say. So many people that I speak to, even if they don't utter it in a kind of forthright way, are presenting in a spirit of, I don't know what's going on. Now, of course, in this tradition, in Zen, we are forever allowing ourselves back into the deeper mind of I don't know. I don't know. I can't know. I can't and won't know this reality, even as I am experiencing it directly. And so what I want to touch on tonight is this great opportunity of practice that says, what if this not knowing that we are experiencing right now is not some kind of obstacle to being here, but the great open gate of practice itself? What if not knowing is actually the open door to finding your feet once more, along with all the many beings on this earth? Now, we speak of living in uncertain times, but if we reflect even for a moment, we can realise that life's always been a bit uncertain. We've never really known what's happening. And even when we think that life is going along swimmingly, everything seems to be working out well, life has a great habit of throwing in a curveball, something to completely unseat us. We've all experienced this. And these curveballs can come in large and small shapes. I was actually just sitting outside having that wonderful cup of tea out there just as the light is getting dark. And all of a sudden, paddy melon. Who knew? Who knew? From where? What? How? It's a kind of curveball of surprise. And it's interesting, isn't it, that when we see something like that, when we are deeply surprised and delighted, it's made possible by a kind of not knowing. We can't know paddy melon, even as we call it paddy melon. Even the word paddy melon is pretty surprising. So these curveballs or these wonderful surprises are forever streaming in. And I would say that not knowing exactly what they are, admitting that we don't know what a leaf is or a tree is or a cloud is or what the sky is, this actually opens up the path to beauty, to experiencing beauty. You can't know beauty, but we can all experience it, and we all do when we step into the world with an open mind, an open heart. My page has fallen out. There's another curveball. So this practice of not knowing really comes with a discipline, in fact, of saying no to our knowing. The simple word no. Whenever we think that we have a solution or we have an interpretation that we believe might be durable in some way, we just simply say no. No to this. And this no is a cherished syllable, a cherished move actually in our tradition. And it is, of course, why on the first night of session we always take up this word no as our focus of study. And we always do this with the great koan case that comes down to us from Zhao Zhou in the 9th to 10th century, who was once asked by a monk who was part of his assembly, does a dog have Buddha nature or not? And Zhao Zhou said, no. No. Now in Chinese this would have been wu. In Japanese, of course, it is mu. Mu is the sound, if you like, the syllabic sound that has been passed down to us through Japan into English as a way of preserving this great and deep no. This wonderful move of the heart that allows beauty to actually find its home in us, as us. So tonight I am going to honour our tradition, as I must, by taking up this case again. And I'm going to do it in the spirit of asking all of us to inquire deeply into how is this no, this response that Zhao Zhou offers to this monk, not a kind of solution, but a great pulling away of the rug of anything that we might be sure of, so that we can once again be in the flow of the Dharma itself. So let's turn to the case. Let's actually unpack this a little. Well, one of the beautiful things about receiving this syllable mu is that it doesn't come with an instruction manual. I've noticed that when I buy things these days, they come with really big instruction manuals. I bought an alarm clock recently. The instruction manual was larger than the clock. There is so much that we're supposed to read and understand before just looking at the time. But mu mercifully comes with no instruction manual. It just comes as mu. And this feels utterly appropriate to a life, does it not? Because life doesn't come with an instruction manual. We don't get born with a booklet that is bigger than us. Sometimes I think parents might rather like that. But that's not how it is. We're actually asked to step into this world blindly, with a kind of faith in not knowing. We can't know our life in advance. We can only touch it step after step after step. So when we take up this koan mu, we are in fact taking up this very dimension of our life. We're not saying that we know our life. We're not saying that we can know our life. But we are committing to realising our life with the support or with the company of this syllable mu. I love that nobody actually knows how working with mu works. I had a good laugh reading an essay by Joan Sutherland, actually, and she said, we all work with koans if we get the chance, but those of us who do have no idea how they work. Not even the teachers know how they work, but they seem to work. Just like we seem to breathe, and we seem to walk, and we seem to think, we seem to feel, all of these things. How interesting that when we align ourselves with mu, we are aligning ourselves with things that we have trusted all along. So in a very deep way, it's not strange. It might look strange at the outset, but in fact, it's not strange. Now the monk asks Zhao Zhou, does the dog have Buddha nature or not? I want to return to this aspect of the koan a little bit later tonight. But it's interesting that Zhao Zhou actually responds no, which is often taken in as no, does not have. This dog, no, does not have Buddha nature. Now this is actually a fairly scandalous thing to say, given that Orthodox Buddhism says all beings have the Buddha nature, full stop, no question. This is just a living, plain fact. So what then is Zhao Zhou saying no to? Is he saying no to the Buddha nature itself? Or might he actually be saying no to the monk's line of inquiry? The monk is asking, does it have it or not have it? It's a bit like, are we here or not here? Is this full or is this empty? Any dualism you might like to bring to this, Jiao simply says, no, mu. Not that way. Not like that. There is something deeper to see here. You will have noticed perhaps in the Heart Sutra, our great beating heart of Zen practice and so many other streams of Mahayana Buddhism, you may have noticed that this word no actually thumps through the whole sutra, all the way through. No, 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 no. When we recite it in Sino-Japanese, you'll hear mu, 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 mu. It's like the very underpinning of the sutra itself. Is this no? Is this mu? And I sometimes think that we forget just how radical the Heart Sutra in fact is. It's saying no to all sorts of things. If you actually study the Heart Sutra and go into it into a little bit more depth and begin to unpack some of the references or things that are being referenced to in the Heart Sutra, you'll find that this is an incredible upheaval of what is now understood to be Theravadan Buddhism. Theravadan Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism are not so different as we sometimes like to believe. But in this case, we have Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, the great embodiment of the Mahayana tradition, speaking to Shariputra, who is a representative of the Theravadan stream. And have a listen to how much of orthodox Buddhism is turned right upside down in this Heart Sutra. Again, it's scandalous when you listen in to see how it goes. So it begins with a reference to the 5 skandhas. These are the very building blocks of Buddhist reality. That's form, sensation, perception, formulation, consciousness. The Heart Sutra says, mu, no. No form, no sensation, no perception, no formulation, no consciousness. It completely turns this upside down. And then there are the ayatamas, which are the mental homes or sites of experience. That's the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. Well, we're all familiar with the way the Heart Sutra says, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. And then there are the dhatus, or the 18 aspects of experience. That's colour, sound, scent, taste, touch, thought. Again, the Heart Sutra turns this upside down. No colour, no sound, sense, taste, touch, thought. No seeing, and so on to no thinking. Everything, no, no, no. And this even extends to the 4 Noble Truths. The 4 Noble Truths, which are the centrepiece of Buddhist study. The Heart Sutra says, there is no anguish, cause of anguish, cessation, path. That's the 4 Noble Truths there. But it's saying no suffering, no cause of suffering, no end to suffering, no path. This is a great undermining of anything you might seek to know about the Dharma. And so if all of this is in play, if this great rug of certainty has been yanked out from beneath us, where does that leave us? Where are we then? Where are we in fact right now? Well, of course, it leaves us with nothing. Nothing at all. Certainly nothing to attain. You'll remember that from the Heart Sutra itself. There is nothing to attain. It says, since there is nothing to attain, the Bodhisattva lives by prajna paramita. Now, prajna paramita is a way of saying the perfection of wisdom. That sounds rather good, doesn't it? to perfect wisdom. But as the Heart Sutra has reminded us, and as the tradition keeps reminding us, this is mu. Prajna paramita is mu. To take mu to heart is to live by prajna paramita. In session we have this great chance to live by mu. To live this great active not knowing. And to discover how reassuring, how real this is, this not knowing in which we find ourselves. So to practice with mu is to practice with it at all times. It is to walk up the stairs, mu. It is to go to the toilet, mu. It is to eat your dinner, mu. It is to sit on the cushion and experience nothing but mu. Mu as nothing. No introduced thing. Nothing added. No sense of even attaining anything whatsoever. When the Dalai Lama was actually asked, given the state of the world, what would you change? He said, I would change nothing. I would change nothing. And this comes from a man who is not unfamiliar with the strife of the world, of course. Is he being reckless or nihilistic here? Or is he actually inviting us to say that if we change nothing, if we actually meet nothing with nothing, we can actually once again reacquaint ourselves with that flow, become the flow itself. This was his great teaching, and this was Zhao Zhou's great teaching too. So let's look at this non-attainment a little bit more closely. And there is a case from the Wu Men Quan, actually the Mumon Kan it's sometimes called. There's that mu again. It translates as the no gate gate, or the no gate gateway. This is case 9 from the Mumon Kan. It's called Jingyan's Non-Attained Buddha. A monk asked the priest Jingyan, the Buddha of supremely pervading, surpassing wisdom, did zazen on the body seat for 10 kalpas, but the Dharma of the Buddha did not manifest itself, and he could not attain Buddhahood. Why was this? Jingyan said, your question is exactly to the point. The monk said, but he did zazen on the body seat. Why couldn't he attain Buddhahood? Jingyan said, because he is a non-attained Buddha. Now, if we're lucky, all of us will come to realise that we are non-attained Buddhas. Any whiff of attainment, any sense of, I've discovered something, I have the answer, I can now glide on some kind of plateau of experience and never have to attend to the world as it is, well, that's adding a lot to this world as it already is. Too much, I would say. Too much even for a human being. Human beings are very good at adding all of this extra weight to their lives. But what if we let it go? What if we actually let go of all of this additive that we seem so hell-bent on introducing? Well, when Jingyan says, your question is exactly to the point, remember the monk is asking, why didn't this Buddha of, what's his name? It's a wonderful name. It's supremely pervading, surpassing wisdom. Imagine that on a name tag. It's supremely pervading and surpassing wisdom here yet. You can ask yourselves. Well, he's asking, it's a bit like prajna paramita, perfection of wisdom. If we're practicing this, how is it that supremely pervading, surpassing wisdom could not attain Buddhahood? Well, of course, you'll already be hearing that there is a sense of attainment here. He's almost asking, why couldn't he manifest himself as the Dharma? As if the Dharma was some kind of static thing. to be arrested somehow or owned or claimed. But Jinyan's saying no to this. He's saying your question is exactly to the point. Your question that leans into the fact that he doesn't. It's not like that. We don't get to have or have not in the Buddha Dharma. I like that we don't even know much about Jinyan, this teacher, as a character. He has no dates, you might say. He has mu dates. There's only one case attributed to him, and it's this one, this case. Not a bad legacy to leave, actually, this non-attained case, this case all about non-attainment. But we do know that he belonged to what's called the Guiyang school, and that was a school that actually prioritised a very playful exchange in the Dharma. It was sometimes called the school of equals. It wasn't one of those schools where the teacher sat on high to speak down to a student. The exchanges were shared. And it's very much in that spirit that I hear this case. Your question is exactly to the point. He's not correcting this monk. He's not trying to be one up on him. He's actually saying, what a great question. And your very not knowing here is to the point. Don't stray from your very not knowing here. This is your dear thing. Keep it close. But the monk, of course, is still troubled. He really wants an answer. I think we can relate to this. So many of us walk into the setting of a dojo saying, just give me the damn answer. I just want the solution. Please, give it to me. But again, mercifully, Jinyan doesn't give it to him. Even though the monk is saying, why doesn't he attain Buddhahood? Jinyan can only say, because he is a non-attained Buddha. He is a non-attained Buddha. He has no interest in attainment. He's not going to get tangled up or caught that way. Now, speaking of not getting caught up and entangled that way, I promised I'd come back to the dog. And dogs are a wonderful example of not getting tangled up and having or not having Buddha nature. They are so happy just to move around and be themselves, just to show reality as it is. They're not vexed in the way that we are, and because of that they are deeply cherished, I believe, by human beings. That's why we love to be close to them. They're reminding us all the time that this has nothing to do with having or not having. It has nothing to do with cleverness. Let's actually just be with each other. Let's share this reality with each other. Let's laugh and move and nurse and assist and do all these things that we can do. This is living well. And this is living by prajna paramita. And I like that Wu Men, in his commentary to this case of Zhao Zhou's Mu, says this. He says, a dog, Buddha nature, a full presentation of the whole. With a little bit of has or has not, body is lost, life is lost. Dogs are teaching us this. And yet we are so habitually caught up in has or has not, or have and have not. We are so caught up in the human complicating mind. And this is a shame, in fact. I don't mean that in an accusatory way, but it hurts to be just 1 millimetre away from our true body. It hurts to feel that we're not quite here, that we're somehow locked out of reality, perhaps locked out by this busy, whirring mind of ours. And I suspect that's exactly what the monk was bringing forth when he spoke to Zhao Zhou here. It's interesting that in medieval Chinese, the character for dog actually means something like a wretch or a knave or a fool, a contemptible person. That's because dogs in China at that time were not revered in the way that we honour them now. They were seen as a kind of subspecies. So the monk is actually arriving with a sense of, do I have Buddha nature? Can I have Buddha nature? Does a dog like me even have any access to this at all? He's feeling like a very miserable dog in medieval China. And it's funny how dogs even today get pushed around and nudged around. And I just want to share this poem with you from Billy Collins because he's wonderful on dogs. He's actually got a whole collection of poems just dedicated to dogs called Dog Song. And this is one of them. Nobody here likes a wet dog. No one wants anything to do with a dog that is wet from being out in the rain or retrieving a stick from a lake. Look how she wanders around the crowd. Wanders around the crowded pub tonight, going from one person to another, hoping for a pat on her head, a rub behind her ears, something that could be given with one hand without even wrinkling the conversation. But everyone pushes her away. Some with a knee, others with the sole of a boot. Even the children, who don't realise she is wet until they go to pet her, push her away, then wipe their hands on their clothes. And whenever she heads towards me, I show her my palm, and she turns aside. Oh, stranger to the future, he's actually imagining somebody 100 years from now. Oh, stranger of the future, oh, inconceivable being. Whatever the shape of your house, no matter how strange and colourless the clothes you wear, I bet nobody there likes a wet dog either. I bet everybody in your pub, even the children, pushes her away. Now there's so much in this poem that actually speaks to our encounter here with this monk and Jiao Zhou. You might say that the monk is pushing his own body away, pushing himself away by this have or have not obsession that he's brought. Do I have it or not have it? And you might say that Jiao Zhou is actually just offering up his hand and saying, no, not that way. Don't get caught up in that unself-serving habit of criticising yourself, feeling that you are somehow not worthy of being here, and yet you are already here. This is the great reveal, the great open secret. We are already here, have always been here. The practice of Mu is simply to allow ourselves to admit this. And when we admit it with this heart and mind of not knowing, we admit the beauty of being here. Not just the beautiful things that we see and touch and hear and experience, but the beauty of this body. The beauty of being a wet dog human being. We are all, after all, wet dog human beings. We shuffle about that pub and we bump into things and we move around and we look for affection and we do all those sorts of things and we get it. But sometimes we can just get a little bit too caught up in feeling unworthy. But again, any move of the mind in that fashion, Jiao Zhou just says, Mu, not that way. And this returns us finally again to the Heart Sutra. Because if we can really take this open ground of Mu to heart, then there is no obstruction. There is nothing lacking. There is nothing that needs to be added. There is no attainment. But, as the Heart Sutra says, when we can really exist in this Mu way, we can realise that there is no hindrance in the mind. With no hindrance in the mind, there is, as it says, no fear. Far beyond delusive thinking, it says, right here is nirvana. So we are here in this session to recognise this very place as nirvana. This very place is the lotus land. This very moment is the one that you have been waiting for. There is no other moment to wake up. We wake up in this moment, exactly as we are. Not changed, not different. If anything, just more intimate with this not knowing. And after all, it is going to be this intimacy with not knowing that allows us to respond to the many cries of this world. But we respond from a shared place, not from outside, not even from inside, but from no place at all. So thank you for your trouble.